from it. Destiny arrives all the same.
Day 2 of the 2020 Reebok CrossFit Games includes much more dominance from our defending champions, Mat Fraser and Tia-Clair Toomey, and dare I say, more deviousness plot twists from Dave Castro. We've already heard there's going to be an additional event. Much more fun to come here at the 2020 Reebok CrossFit Games. Welcome to our Rogue Iron Games set. I'm Sam Farber with Pat Sherwood and Annie Sakamoto. Glad to be here in our home away from home CrossFit brethren. So thankful to them for hosting us here in Morgan Hill. Already seen 2 events in the books for the men and the women. A lot to talk about there, but the big plot twist, an additional event. We knew something was going to come from Dave Castro, and while we don't know what the event is, we know there's an extra one.
We chatted yesterday about that nice little catchphrase, right? The unknown and the unknowable, and that's exactly what's playing out here. We thought that day 2, when we first looked at it, we're like, it's a nice light day. And now we don't know what that other piece is, but I have to think it's going to be substantial.
Well, and I love just the first 2 events today. So yesterday, Dave just kind of beat them up both physically and mentally with 5 pretty grueling tests. And then the very first 2 events today, he asks for massive speed and strategy and technique and accuracy. So, so far, so good as far as the test is concerned for me.
Well, let's dive right into what's taken place already today. We'll start with event 6 for the women, that combination of toes to bar and lunges. Entering today after the trail run, there was that minor shakeup in the standings with Tia-Clair Toomey's advantage dropping down ever so slightly to a point where she could, in theory, lose the leader jersey in an individual event. You see what the description was, 30-20-10 rep scheme of toes to bar and kettlebell lunges. Early on, Katrin Davidsdottir continuing her momentum from the day before. She was first into the lunges, but that little bit of a change in strategy on where the kettlebells were placed. Tia-Clair Toomey able to pick them up, get to the line a little bit faster, and cross the line in first place, pick up a big 100 points. Katrin Davidsdottir finishing second in the event. See the final times. Haley Adams, the teenager, ends up in 4th, Brooke Wells in 3rd, and Carrie Pierce 5th place in event 6. So after 2 events off of a first place finish, Tia-Clair Toomey finally back on top and got the post-event interview.
Yeah, body feels great. Recovery was on peak as much as what I could have had hoped for. Definitely was fueling the body, keeping it hydrated, and then getting the necessary recovery protocols in as well. So I feel great this morning after a nice long sleep, and yeah, I'm ready for day 2.
Great, well, congrats.
There's Tia-Clair Toomey after that event win, and momentum is a big thing in sports. Mentioned Katrin Davidsdottir really had a lot of momentum coming into today when that trail run became a trail loop. She went from a 4th place finish to a 1st place finish, and it certainly seemed to help her there. Tia-Clair Toomey not deterred, even though she went from a 1st place finish to finishing 3rd in that trail run. She gets right back on top early on day 2.
Well, and I think she's really showing not just the physicality of a champion, but the mindset of a champion, right? So she, like you said, Sam, she came off of a 5th place finish and a 3rd place finish. And then in this event, Katrin has the lead early on, and you can see that Toomey is not only kind of playing her own game, she's letting Katrin be ahead of her slightly, but she's also strategizing much better than Katrin by placing those kettlebells right underneath the pull-up bar, which ended up, saving her a few seconds and winning her in the end.
And we saw how costly in a sprint event like this, we're expecting to be unbroken on everything, that little slip-ups, literal slip-ups, were costly. So we had Carrie Pierce and Haley Adams, the 2 athletes that during the lunges just lost their footing on the grass, and they wound up taking spots 4 and 5. So when the margins are super tight, any little deviation from the plan, it just bumps you right down the leaderboard.
With that win, Tia-Clair Toomey increased her lead past 100 points again, so a bit more comfortable, but she wasn't done with her impressive work here in day 2. Event 7 was the snatch speed triple, 3 bars per round, each one for the women increasing 5 pounds at a time. Early on is part race, later on it's that ability to keep your strength, keep your stamina, to be able to hit those final couple bars, hopefully on your first attempt. Let's take you right into the action. Early on in this one, Tia-Clair Toomey in the middle of the field. She's got the chance to see everyone. What were you guys' thoughts as this one got underway?
Well, you know, we knew Haley wasn't the strongest athlete, and this is definitely where we saw that play out. And that is that, you know, most of these ladies could power snatch all 3 of these barbells, whereas poor Haley had to squat snatch right from the very beginning, and that's very costly, again, when we're talking about seconds between reps.
That was the final bar at 155, and I was hopeful that she would potentially make it through this first cut, since she said she can move a moderate load quickly, but it just didn't pan out that way.
And again, then, you know, here we come to the semifinals. Tia is still running to each barbell. Her setup is barely any time at all, and even that second barbell right there is barely a squat snatch, which when you're thinking about the energy used to get that bar from the ground overhead is so much easier than having to squat snatch it.
I was impressed the entire time with Brooke Wells. Entering event 7, she was dead last in 5th place, so she needed, hey, the heavy barbells are coming out, I need to perform, and that's exactly what she did. She nailed it.
Great job from Carrie Pierce. Again, she's up against some of the best snatching ladies in the field. But it was this event, right, or the final event, the final piece of it right here, where, again, I was so impressed with Tia not walking to the bar, but jogging. And again, her setup was quick. She didn't sit there and stare at the bar. She literally could put right hand on, left hand on, and snatch.
And just in the background there, you know, we were looking at Brooke, but Katrin Davidsdottir just showed her poise. She should have missed that lift at 180, but she was patient, let the bar settle overhead, got her balance and stood it up, and she's just kind of showing why she's a 2-time champ. She hung right in there.
And again, like you said, Pat, great performance from Brooke Wells. She was smiling, she looked confident, and when you think about her day 1, it was great to see that side of Brooke coming out on this second event today.
When the heavy barbells come out, she's going to make that money.
Katrin Davidsdottir able to wrap things up. A 3rd place finish. Tia-Clair Toomey, the full 100 points. And that's a clean sweep, at least so far today on day 2. 2 events, 200 points for Tia-Clair Toomey. She just continues to build and build on her advantage, and she talked once again after the event.
Well, I think that, you know, any speed ladder is always a lot of fun, not just for spectators, but also for the athletes as well. You know, we get to test our limits and go as fast as we can.
Still a lot of unknown in the competition coming up here.
So with a 2-win start to day 2 for Tia-Clair Toomey, she builds that lead right back up, much more comfortable here. As you guys look at the overall setting of this competition through 2 events on day 2, what are your thoughts?
Well, right now, you know, I feel like I jinxed Haley Adams earlier today when I said there was only 3 athletes that hadn't budged on that leaderboard yesterday, her being one of them. And then what happened? She takes a little tumble down the leaderboard, falling from 2nd place to 4th place, although she's tied with 325 points. You know, it's not surprising that she didn't do well on the snatch speed triple, especially against the ladies like Tia, Brooke, and Katrin. But what is surprising to me is that she didn't do better on event 6, the toe to bar lunge event. This is an event, a similar event came up in the Rogue Invitational this year. It was toes to bar and assault bike, and she won that event. So a little surprising that she couldn't kind of make her move and make some points on that event. We'll see what happens though. Like we've said, there's been so much up and down. She's only 65 points back from 2nd place. She can easily make that up in 1 or 2 events. So there's a lot yet to be seen with Miss Adams.
For me, it's Katrin Davidsdottir. I mean, I think what we're seeing play out currently is going to continue all the way through the end of the competition. So Day one, Katrin finished on a high with that miserable trail, and she took that momentum forward. She had a couple events initially, it didn't quite go how you would want them to as a previous champ. She suffered a back injury earlier in the year that didn't quite have her total numbers where she wanted, but then she got out on the trail for some sled dog work, and she absolutely capitalized on that curveball that Dave Castro threw at everybody. And now she entered event 7 in second place. She left in second place, but she gave herself a nice 40-point cushion over third place. And I think it's going to be really tough to get Katrin off of that podium.
She certainly did take advantage, and just like yesterday in the trail run, when it became a trail loop, she had a big smile on her face. She felt that was to her advantage. I think in terms of the overall standings, if she wants to get into first place and catch up to Tia-Clair Toomey, she's going to need Dave Castro to add a few more events. But right now, she is in a solid position in terms of the race for second place. Tia-Clair Toomey, though, just blowing away the competition once again. She's got a 180-point lead at this stage of the game. And, of course, now we know there are at least, you have to say at least, we have to put caveats in all this,
exactly.
2 events left to go here today on day 2. How about the men's competition? Matt Fraser has just been dominant from start to finish. Even based off what the commentators were saying earlier today, there might be a hint that maybe it was a coach's decision and not his that kept him from having a clean sweep overall. But in event 6, toes to bar and the lunge combination, he kind of similarly to Tia-Clair Toomey mentioned that his strategy on where he placed his kettlebells allowed him to have the win. Noah Ohlsen was quicker off of the bar from the toes to bars initially, but as the event wore on, Matt Fraser able to take advantage and keep his efficiency up and register yet another event win. He has missed only once in terms of taking an event, and that was a second place finish. He has been absolutely as impressive as we have ever seen him in a CrossFit Games. His time, 3 minutes and 4 seconds. He finishes in first. Noah Ohlsen, you guys were looking for big things from him in this one. He takes second. Medeiros third. Quentin Adler round things out. But Matt Fraser continuing his dominant run. They spoke with him after the event.
I'm approaching this the same way I approached my first one. Each one, the season brought different obstacles, different things to overcome. Every year there's different strengths and weaknesses with the events that appear. I'm not focused on something like that. I'm focused on one event at a time.
Well, congrats.
He is just so impressive, and last year there was that little bit of a change from the dominance, overall dominance that we have seen from him inside of a competition, just kind of wall-to-wall winning things. He was pushed a little bit in the standings this year. It's just no contest. He has almost lapped the field at this stage, 7 events in.
There's a couple of things I like here. Number one, I love that Fraser, he never takes the bait on the question. You want to hear, this is really important to me, I'm pouring my heart into it, I can't wait to get number 5. And he's like, no. It's just one event at a time. I'm not even going to think about it. So whether that's true or not, I don't know. But I love that he never gives into it. And the other one is, I got to give credit, I think Noah Ohlsen is having a great games, because one of the things he traditionally does is his pace. He explodes. He goes out too much. I think his pacing has been some of the best that I've seen in his recent competitions, where he's getting as close to redline and collapse he did on the total. You saw him just shaking in the lifts. He couldn't have done any more. And then he pushed Matt Fraser on that event right there. I think Noah's having a great event, and I hope he just continues it.
Yeah, I think Noah really kind of picked up where he left off with that leader jersey last year on that event 6. Like you said, Pat, he was pushing the pace, he was pushing Matt, and he seemed comfortable doing it. It didn't seem frantic, it didn't seem kind of out of what he could actually do as far as capacity goes. So I agree. I think it was great to see Noah specifically on this event.
Yeah, Pat, you mentioned the interview dynamic. I've asked some of those questions to him in the past, and I thought from some of the non-in-event interviews that we've seen from him in mentioning, some of his goals, wanting to be the fittest of all time by having these consecutive wins stack up. But maybe there was a little bit of a change. No, he's in his same kind of mindset, and it's obviously served him well over the years and continues to serve him well here in 2020. We roll into event 7, and a similar event, obviously, to what the women had to do. Little bit of a change in the sense that the final bar of each round was the first one for the next one, but obviously they continue to increase along the way. Snatch speed triple, Matt Fraser, certainly a favorite with a weightlifting background, although he is as well-rounded as anyone we've ever seen in the sport. And we had someone call their shot with Adler saying he was going after the champ in this one.
I love that. And I mean, whether he believed it or not, I don't know, but I love to see anybody just try to rattle the champ a little bit, and kudos to Adler for doing that.
Yeah, and we even heard Matt say that there's been some banter back and forth and that it's been really fun amongst them. And that's what I think we're getting in this competition. With only 5 athletes, no music, we're hearing more of the banter between them, the cheering back and forth, and that's been really fun.
And Medeiros just missed the cut there on the first heat, and they're just entering the second one. It was down to the top 4.
And again, so much of this comes down to timing and technique, speed and accuracy. So you can go fast, but you have to make sure that you know yourself well enough that you're not going to miss a lift. And I think it was this semifinals where a lot of the gentlemen missed that third bar, and they all just kind of had to stand there and look at each other like, who's going to go? Are you ready? I'm not ready. Samuel Quant makes his last bar right there. Adler makes his last bar, and then Noah realizes he's out of the competition. No need to even try to snatch it.
And going into the finals, okay, sure. Fraser says it's just some playful banter. We're all friends. I'm staying in my lane. It's me versus me. All the wonderful things you'd see on a motivational poster. But the truth is, he would have died trying to beat Adler since he was kind of called out. Even if it's a joke, that does not fly with the champ.
But again, like you said, I love that he kind of said it. He's trying to push Matt, and that's good. We don't want these guys to just be bowing down to Matt. We want to give him a little run, and right there, you see Matt misses his first
attempt. The door was open.
At the last bar, looks over his shoulder. Where's Jeffrey at?
And Fraser went back on that bar quick because he was looking over at Jeff.
Yep, and he knew if Jeff made that first lift, that first attempt at that bar, it could have been over for Matt. Jeffrey, luckily for Matt, misses the first one, and Matt wins it.
Jeff Adler had said he wanted to look over at Matt after he made the last lift. I half expected Matt to do the same in return, but he just thumps his chest, moves on, gets another 100 points. In a year that has seen so much change in and out of sport, one thing remains the same: Matt Fraser as dominant as ever.
There aren't really any differences, for me and what I focus on. I like that there's no music. I don't mind that there's no crowd. It's the same for me. I'm looking to the guys to the right and left of me. I'm trying to tap every ounce of my potential. Yep. So with all the changes, I still focus on me, and I have full control over that.
Matt Fraser, 6 event wins in 7 events, and the one he didn't win, he finished second. 675 points. He is almost lapping the field at this stage. With their second and third place finishes, I might add, Jeffrey Adler and Samuel Quant do kind of bring the rest of the field back within range, so the race for second becomes a little bit tighter. But Matt Fraser, what else can you say? I mean, he might not miss the crowd, or he might be okay with the fact that there isn't a crowd here, but I know there are thousands and thousands of CrossFit fans that would love to witness what we are watching here.
Definitely. And one of those people that really feeds off the crowd is Noah Olson. And so again, I was wondering how he would respond to this environment where there was no crowd to kind of lift him up and give him some hype. Well, he's done so well, especially, he was in 5th place after event 4 yesterday. Not where we expected to see him. Well, then he goes out and he gets 3rd place on the ranch run, which was enough to bring him into third place. And then I love this. He goes toe-to-toe on the toes to bar with Matt. He gets second place on that event, kind of more where we expected to see Noah. He doesn't win the speed snatch triple, but he really does the best that Noah could do on that event. And it was enough to pull him into second place. And again, a lot of that is due to the point spread that we have and the shifts that we can see in these events. So kind of where we expected to see Noah, especially midday, day 2.
After 7 events, yes, I agree. Noah's right where I think he should be. Close anyway. But somebody who's not is Samuel Quant. I think Quant has more in the tank. I don't think he's living up to his potential and capacity thus far. But with so many events left, I expect to see him climb up the leaderboard. I'll admit I was a bit surprised that he was one of the top 5 coming out of stage 1. And now this is his 4th time at the games. And I said this in a previous show, he's kind of the quintessential CrossFitter. And by that I mean he does everything pretty darn well and is not exactly a standout in any one singular area. However, over the course of a multiple event competition such as the games, that plays to your strength. So after 7 events, to see Quant sitting in 5th place, that's not where I expected him to be, and that's not where I think he has the potential to be. So I have my eye on him to slowly and steadily start advancing.
Like I said, the competition for second, the competition for the podium really has drawn a bit closer, so that'll be one interesting thing to watch as we move forward. The race for first place, it was certainly thought to be in the hands of our reigning champions coming in, and that has just proven to be true. They are essentially racing against history already. Each of them are in possession of the most career wins, but it's a question of how far they can push the bar over the course of their career, because this year it's just not in doubt. They are the dominant forces in this sport. Matt Fraser, 6 event wins so far today. Tia-Clair Toomey with 5.
I mean, they are fit to the point of it almost being offensive. You know, it is our role, like we said, to bring the drum, the heat, and who can push so-and-so where. And it's a struggle when it comes to Tia and Matt to come up with a deficiency or why this event's going to throw them a loop. And, you know, having covered the sport for over 10 years now, that's not a common occurrence in my profession. It's usually relatively easy to find something, but they have worked their tail off to be so well-rounded, and now I just have to sit back and enjoy the show, quite frankly.
Right, Pat. There's nothing that comes up. There's not an event that gets announced, and we're like, ooh, Matt and Tia are going to hate that one.
Do terrible.
Exactly. And you know, usually there's always someone that you could say, yeah, that's not going to be their favorite event. Well, pretty much everything that's come out of the hopper so far has been like, yeah, Matt likes that. Yeah, Tia do well at that.
Yeah, the shock for them is like, oh, Tia didn't win the trail run. That's interesting. Like, that's the big story. She didn't win. They're incredible for sure.
No doubt about that. Well, we are very thankful that despite everything that's taken place in 2020, we've been able to have these games and see these great athletes perform. Hasn't been the case across all sports, but a lot of athletes working through things to make sure they're in their best form when competition is able to resume. One of those athletes is going to join us right now here on Rogue Iron Game. It's weightlifter CJ Cummings. Joining us now here on Rogue Iron Game, Pan American and 4-time junior world champion CJ Cummings. CJ, thank you so much for joining us. It has been an eventful year, to say the least, dealing with COVID-19. What has been the impact on you?
So COVID, it affected me drastically. So this year I was supposed to be going to the Olympics, but, you know, due to COVID, it got pushed back, you know, next year. So I was a little bit frustrated about that because I was looking forward to it. I was excited, but, you know, looking at the positive side, you know, gives me more time to train, more time to get better, and, you know, more time to put on an even better performance at the Olympics. But with training and everything, it was kind of like a drastic change also. At first we started like, you know, working outside, garage setting, training in the garage. And then like after like a month and a half, that's when we, transitioned into like, working in the gym. But it was kind of weird training then because, at that point we had social distancing too. And like, with weightlifting, you always have like a training partner or somebody you work out with, but it's just like, you're working at like a 6 feet distance from them. So it was kind of weird getting used to.
Now, in addition to COVID, there have been some changes with the IWF and the IOC, some upheaval there. How, if at all, has that affected you?
I'm not sure. I guess like the International Weightlifting Federation is still like, deciding whether people should like requalify or not. But the reason why, like, I qualified over Maddie because, I had the luxury of like, being a junior this past year. So I was able to do like more gold medal, what they call it, like gold medal competitions. So that way I was able to secure my spot much faster.
CJ, how are you staying motivated in your training?
So we're still training. So right now my eyes is always set on, the Olympics, so Tokyo. So, my eyes is always set on that, but, we will have like little competitions. So it's just to always improve and to get better, one day at a time, one step at a time. Just as long as I keep improving, I'm moving in the right direction.
Always be improving is the name of the game. What are you working on in particular right now?
What I hope to accomplish by the end of next year is, actually going to the Olympics, getting a medal at the Olympics, just representing my country the best way I could. So what me and my coach are working on is just, it's right now because we have a competition in December, like the first week of December. So right now we're in like I would call it like the building stage, working on like, technique, just, fixing like my technique, making it sharper, just making it better. So that's 9 times out of 10 what you'll see when I post on Instagram. It's just, just technique work, getting better at that, trying to master that craft. Then, when we're about like 3 to 4 weeks out, we'll just start focus on actually doing like the lifts, like actual snatch, actual clean and jerk, and just, trying to not max out, but just hit like volume lifts. And like, the week before we'll just taper off, and then when the competition happens, it's, showtime.
All right, CJ. Well, thank you so much for the time. It was a pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you guys for having me.
And thanks again to CJ. It's really just another reminder with a year that's seen so much taken away from us. We've seen sports be it the Olympics or college basketball, March Madness, that we're not able to compete. We're very, very thankful that the CrossFit Games were able to take place, and of course to everyone at Rogue for helping make this production possible here at Rogue Iron Game. Getting back into the competition here today, Event 8 is up next for our athletes. It is the bike repeater. 10 rounds of a 440-meter bike sprint, followed by a legless rope climb. Do that 10 times. We have seen events involving a bike before. Think cyclocross back in 2017. What are some of the keys to this one, Annie?
Well, I think number one, Sam, it's going to come down a little bit to your grip strength. This is 10 legless rope climbs. So hopefully you have practiced your legless rope climbs and you have good grip strength. Then it's going to come down to being really fast on that bike, because the timing for one rope climb is probably about the same for all the athletes. So you're going to have to push the pace on the bike. Having said that, you're going to have to be really careful on your transitions on that bike. So I think what they've said is if you throw your bike down and the chain comes off, there's a certain area where you're actually going to have to walk your bike to exchange it for another bike, and those are costly minutes when you're thinking about a 10-round competition.
No doubt about it. Well, let's start with the men. Who loves it? Who hates it? Pat.
Samuel Quant better love this, okay, because he needs it. Let's get fired up. Let's get behind Samuel Quant. Here we go. We've talked about some athletes that have set up their lives, that everything they do is train, life is great. Samuel Quant is the only athlete in the entire field that is a parent. So he's got a small little child at home, under 6 months old. having to deal with all of that interrupted sleep. His wife is a teacher, and she also must be an angel, because he said in his own words, she makes sure that Samuel gets enough sleep, that he can focus on his training, so she's working the job, taking care of the baby. She's obviously amazing. He trains not only at home, but his parents have a great gym for their own personal use. So he trains at his parents' gym. He's got some built-in daycare there as well. One of his listed just strengths in general, he loves the pegboard. Now, I know that's not a legless rope climb, but I would argue the upper body pulling, the lack of the legs, and the grip strength needed on the pegboard might actually even be a bit more challenging than a legless rope climb. So if he manages the bike well, Samuel can start to advance up that leaderboard.
And on the other hand, I'm going to say I don't want to say who hates it, but who's an unknown for me is going to be Jeffrey Adler. Number one, we've never seen him on a bike event. We've seen 3 of the other 5 athletes in either the crit or the cyclocross event, so we know how they do with biking. Besides that, we know that gymnastics is not Adler's strong suit. Strength is. The higher end gymnastics technique things have not always come easy for him, and he has actually said that he does not have good grip strength. Now, having said all of that, he actually did get 5th in first cut last year, which involved 12 legless rope climbs. So although Adler says he's not great at gymnastics and he doesn't have good grip strength, he did well in kind of a higher skill event last year. So I'm curious to see how he does.
Will be interesting. Both those guys trying to make their way into a podium position. Currently 3rd place occupied by Justin Medeiros. He's got best hair locked up. He's got Rookie of the Year locked up. And he's looking to make more noise here at the 2020 Reebok CrossFit Games.
I'm Justin Medeiros. I've been competing in CrossFit since about 2013. I was about in 7th grade. Always did 2 sports. I did wrestling and football. My mom and my sister were the ones that first started CrossFit. And I'm a very competitive person. And they're telling me about how they did a workout in like 5 or 10 minutes or whatever. And I'm like, dude, there's no way you can get a workout in 5 or 10 minutes. I mean, I never even heard of it. And I was like, all right, I got to go check this out. So I went and checked it out and fell in love with it. And used it as a training method for football and wrestling, which was awesome. I think wrestling and CrossFit went hand in hand with each other. And I was able, my senior year in high school, to qualify for my first regional. So since then, CrossFit's kind of been like my full-time sport. Community of the Ranch is it's definitely like a mecca of CrossFit. It's kind of where CrossFit began, and there's a lot of history in it. I actually, my senior year of high school, since I'm kind of from this area, I took my level 1 at the ranch. It's going to be really cool. It might even be like one of the last times it happens, and I'm super excited for it and kind of soak in that moment and kind of be a part of CrossFit history is going to be really cool. My confidence comes from my preparation, and if I know that I've given everything I have every day, I walk into the gym and I try to get better every day. I know when I step out on that competition floor that I'm as prepared for this moment that I possibly could be. So many people have talked about Matt. I mean, even the past like 4 years, about how dominant he's been and still is. I mean, he's proven it every time he steps out on the competition floor, and everyone's talking like he's gonna sweep. It's an easy win this year, and I just want him to go out and remember that this was a games he had to work for. I'm really excited to throw down and compete against him. I mean, you get to compete against the best in the world. What's better than that? Like, there's not too many people that get to say that. So I'm really excited to throw down against him and give it everything I have, and hopefully I get to give him a run for his money.
He has certainly done his best in that regard. There are 3 events where he finished second to Matt Fraser, and there's been a couple of moments within those events, thinking the trail run, where he was right there and momentarily taking the lead and pushing the champ. Right now, he's the one being pushed a little bit for a podium position with 7 events in the books. We'll see how event 8 goes for him on the bike. Let's look at the women. Who loves this one? Who hates this one?
Well, Sam, I'm going to go with Miss Consistent, Carrie Pierce. And I'd first like to note that Carrie is the only female athlete after 7 events that does not have a 5th place finish. And yes, that includes Miss Toomey. Having said that, we know that Carrie has not always had the best finishes on biking events, those being the crit and the cyclocross that we've seen at past CrossFit Games. but she is probably the absolute best when it comes to upper body pulling strength of all the female athletes. She got second on the soccer chipper in 2015, which involved 4 legless rope climbs. She also got second last year in first cut, which involved 12 legless rope climbs. And again, if we're talking about, upper body pulling strength, I really think you can't overlook Carrie Pierce or say enough about her ability to kind of be at the top of the field.
Well, Carrie loves it. Pat, who hates it?
It breaks my heart to say it, but I think Brooke Wells is not going to enjoy this event. If you are a fan of Brooke Wells, and there are thousands and thousands in the world, you've been sad. You've been sad for a little bit, but she recently has done fantastic. Even though she's had an event win on the handstand sprint, did great on the total, most of the time when an event ended, her overall finish, she was in 5th so far, most of the time after 7 events. But she just recently bumped herself into 3rd place, and she wants to hold on to that podium position. She has said that is one of her goals coming out of stage 2 here, and what's going to help her is not 10 legless rope climbs. So even if she's not going to win this event, she cannot take a last. She has to do a bit of damage control.
The bike portion also, historically speaking, might be a challenge as well. Thinking back again to cyclocross, she was, I think, bottom 5 in that one. Just for reference, Katrin Davidsdottir was top 3 in that one in 2017, and Tia-Clair Toomey was top 10. So we'll see how it fares for everyone as they take on a new task here, adding a bike and the legless rope climbs into event 8. Our overall schedule, we've had an addition already. We'll see what else Dave Castro has up his sleeve, but we know we are going to have a 4th event today, 9th event overall, and who knows how many it's going to get added on by the end of the day. One thing we know for sure, we'll be here for you on Rogue Iron Game to break it all down and set it all up. Our next event window is coming up next, and we'll be back with you at 2:15 local here. That's 5:15 on the East Coast with much, much more. That's going to do it for now. For Annie Sakamoto and Pat Sherwood and our entire crew, I'm Sam Farber. Thanks for watching. We'll talk to you later here today on Rogue Iron Game.